Okay, Jai Meher Baba, everyone. We have our tween Zoom today with Allan Cohen, and it's going to be a very interesting topic. So we're going to first start off with our prayers, and then we'll get into the meat and the potatoes, so to speak. So, Elora, would you like to recite Baba's prayer? I'm going to share screen. Go ahead.
Okay. O Parvatikar, the preserver and the protector of all, you are without beginning and without end, non-dual, beyond comparison, and none can measure you. You are without color, without expression, without form, and without attributes. You are unlimited and unfathomable. You are beyond imagination and conception, eternal and imperishable. You are indivisible and none can see you, but with eyes divine. You always were, you always are, and you always will be. Always will be. You are everywhere, you are in everything, and you are also beyond everywhere and beyond everything. You are in the firmament and in the depths. You are in the manifest and the unmanifest. Wait, hold on. Where am I? Sorry. You are the three worlds and also beyond the three worlds. You are imperceptible and independent. You are the creator of the Lords of Lords, the knower of all minds and hearts. You are the omnipotent and omnipresent. You are the past, present, and the future. Stop. Dude. You are the You are the knowledge infinite, power infinite, and bliss infinite. You are the ocean of knowledge, all knowing, infinitely knowing, the knower of the past, the present, and the future. You are knowledge itself. You are all merciful and eternally benevolent. You are the soul of souls, one with its infinite attributes. You are the trinity of truth and knowledge and bliss. You are the source of truth, the ocean of love. You are the ancient one, the highest of the high. You are Prabhu and Parashamaram. And you are the source of truth and the ocean of love. You are the ancient one and the highest why. You are Prabhu and Ilahi Stan, our Musuda, and you were named Isa, the only one of worthership.
Thank you. Okay, that was a great job. Meher, would you like to read the repentance prayer for us?
Sure. So we repent, O God, most merciful, for all our sins, for every thought that was false or unjust or unclean, for every word spoken that are not having spoken, for every deed done that are not having done. Um, we repent for every deed and word and thought inspired by selfishness, and for every deed and word and thought inspired by hatred. We repent most especially for every lustful thought and every lustful action, for every lie, for all hypocrisy, for every promise given but not fulfilled, and for all slander and backbiting. Most especially also, we repent for every action that has brought ruin to others, for every word and deed that has given others pain, and for every wish that pain should befall others. In your unbounded mercy, we ask you to forgive us, O God, for all these sins committed by us, and to forgive us for constant failures to think and speak and act according to your will.
Thank you. Okay, Manya, will you do us the honor of reading Beloved God prayer?
Sure. Beloved God, help us all to love you more and more, and still yet more till we become worthy of union with you, and help us all to hold fast to Baba's Dharma until the very end.
All right. Okay, so thank you very much. I'm gonna stop sharing now. Hold on one second. Okay, so here we are with Allan. Have you guys, how many of you have met Allan before? Okay, I think, thanks, Rich. I would like Allan to just meet everyone real quick And we'll do a quick introduction. It's a great turnout today, so we're very happy to have you all here. And I'm gonna start just going off the boxes. So Leia, would you like to introduce yourself real quick?
Hi, I'm Leia. Nice to meet you.
And how old are you and where are you from?
I'm 17 and I live in DC.
Awesome. Okay, Elora, you're next.
Hi, I'm Alora. Wait, what do I say?
Okay, your name, how old you are, and where you're from.
Oh, my name's Alora. I'm 8 and I'm from DC.
Awesome. Manya?
Hi, my name is Manya, and I'm 8, and I'm from Colorado.
Awesome. Thank you, Manya. Soham?
Hi, my name is Soham. I'm from New Jersey. I'm 16 years old.
Thank you. Meher?
Hi, I'm Meher and I'm 13 and I live in Connecticut.
All right. Sia, go ahead. You're next.
Hi, my name is Sia. I'm from Canada and I'm 13. This is Siri.
Great. Ron?
Yeah, hi, Jay Baba.
Hi. Can you
Yeah, my name is Ramu Monrati. I'm from Virginia.
okay, your son is there, right?
Yeah, my son is here, but not available right now.
Oh, okay, that's okay. Can you
Yeah.
okay. We'll get back to you then.
Yeah, sure. Thanks.
All right. Teju, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Seju, and I'm 9 and I live in Cary.
All right. Thank you, Teju. So nice to meet you. I would request if you guys can turn on your video, that'll be great. So we can put faces to names. And then we have Sahana. Can you just quickly turn on your video so we can just say hi and then move on with the program? Okay. Sahana is my daughter. I think she's being a little shy right now. So, okay. We have some adults here as well. If you guys want to introduce yourselves. Richard?
I'm Rich. I live in Grand Junction, Western Colorado. And I met Allan Cohen when I was 19 in a college town. And he told me about Meher Baba. And now I'm 75.
That's awesome. Wow, you guys go way back. All right, Diantha, go ahead.
Hello, I'm Diantha, and I live in the state of Maine in the US, which is on the East Coast. And I am a Baba lover and a counselor, and I work with teenagers and tweens and people in that age group mostly. So this is an interesting topic for me. And so thank you so much for having me and letting me listen in, Jay Baba.
Hey, Baba, it's so lovely to meet you. We have Jayashree. Amma, you want to introduce yourself?
I'm Dr. Jayashree from Hyderabad. At present, I am in New Jersey, living with my children. This is Shilpa is my daughter-in-law, and Soham and Sahana are my grandkids.
Thank you.
And I'm Baba lover since my childhood.
Thank
Jai
you.
Baba.
Jay Baba. Tina, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Tina. I live in New York City. I'm not going to say my age.
All right. No age for adults. Go ahead, Jan.
Hi, I'm Jay Kavalapudi. I'm actually Shilpa's cousin. I met Alan probably when I was a kid. Been in the Baba community for many years since I've been born. My maternal grandfather, met Meher Baba a couple times. So long journey with Baba so far. And those were my children earlier that spoke. We were from the Washington D.C. metro area.
Welcome, Shailaja. Go ahead.
Hi, Jai Baba. I'm Shalja from Connecticut. So, Meher is my son. So, we're excited for today's program.
Awesome. Benea, do you want to say hi? I know you and Alan know each other well.
Jai Baba, everybody, Jai Shilpa. So
Jai
I'm
Baba.
with Kavalapudi. We're part of the family. Shilpa is my niece, and I have a couple of Kavalapudis here.
Yeah.
Is my son, and everybody's Baba family here. So Jai Baba.
Thank you. I think I got everyone. In case I missed someone, I'm sorry. But Alan, the floor is yours. We will get going. Thank you so much. Oh, you're on mute. Oh, we can't hear you now. Still can't hear you. Yes, it's a little, there's a little bit of a disturbance. Can you say something again?
Okay.
Yes.
Yes, I'm Anderson. Well, Maya always tries to throw in a little technological issue.
I'm sorry, Alan, you're breaking up for some reason. I don't know why.
Is your headset plugged in all the way, Alan? You might want to check if it looks like there's like static on the line.
How about now?
It's still the same. It sounds like you're like one of those Martians from outer space.
Oh, no. All right, I'm going to try to go with the speaker again.
Okay.
Is it working with the speaker now?
Yes, perfect.
Yes.
Can you hear me? All right. Good. Maya, you tried to interrupt us. I love it. Thank you for the privilege of being with this fabulous group. You're famous across Babadom, and all the adults are very welcome too. And it's appropriate. What I wanted to do today was to chat a little bit about how all of us can help Baba in work that is very important to him. Now, you will notice that in the background, I have the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco. And a lot of what I'm going to talk about happened and involved Baba work in San Francisco and Berkeley, California. And we're going to talk a little bit about drugs today, the problem of drugs and alcohol. And I want to recruit you guys to help in being able to assist your peers and friends who might be at some point getting in trouble or beginning to experiment with drugs. I'm not worried about you, but there are very few things more effective than friends telling friends stuff that they don't really know. Now, I don't mean to say that you're going to be experts today, but I did want to introduce you to things that are going on, things that we can talk about, to others, and things that we can't talk about. I want to tell you a story. We had ghosts in the title of this talk because we're going to talk a little bit about ghosts. And you'll see how it relates to drugs. In San Francisco, many years ago, when Baba was interested in us working to tell particularly young people about the dangers of drugs, I had a friend who was very psychic. He's clairvoyant. Now, I don't know how much you know about psychic phenomena or people who are clairvoyant. There are many types of it. Some psychics can read your aura. Some psychics are good at seeing what's happened in the past. Some psychics are very few are good at seeing what's in the future. And others can tell what goes on with the body. Now, there are very, very few good and accurate psychics around. And of course, Baba knew that. There are individual Baba lovers who have psychic abilities, but they're not misusing them. Psychic abilities can only be used to help other people. And you get in real trouble if not. I had a very good friend who was kind of almost like an auntie to me when I was a graduate student. Remained in contact. She came out to California, and she was very good at being able to tell what people were using marijuana. And she could tell by looking at the aura around their heads and to see if there were holes in it. And I didn't know what that meant. You have a hole in your aura, but it didn't sound good. I'm going to explain it a little bit. Now, these are things that the scientists really don't know about yet. But anyway, I said, well, let's do an experiment. I knew a guy who worked for the Drug Enforcement Administration laboratory in San Francisco. And I said, I'd like to do an experiment with this clairvoyant lady to see if she can identify the effects of unusual drug on people just by touching them. And he said, really? I said, yeah. And I said, I know you've got in your laboratory a lot of very interesting drugs. And we would like details on how they worked and what effects they had. Well, he was open-minded, but he couldn't let us in during the work week. I don't think his bosses really would approve. So we came in on a Sunday morning, and he would go, the woman's name was Frances, and we took Frances in, and what he did was put different kinds of drugs in the same vial, so you couldn't tell what they were. And we would bring them out, and she would touch them and talk about their particular effects. Well, it was amazing. There were certain drugs we knew about. We knew about marijuana. We knew the effects of cocaine and amphetamines. These are so-called speed drugs. But he had a lot of varieties of opioids. Now, in those days, they didn't have fentanyl. It was mostly issues around heroin and opium. So he brought them out, and no one knew. We didn't know what they were. And she didn't know what they were, but she touched them, and she could feel and then describe what the effects were. And she was 100% accurate as far as we could tell. Then he brought out something very rare. He didn't say this is a drug that almost no one knows about. It's a real test. And she touched it, and she started to describe its effects. And then she started to cry. She started to cry. She was sobbing. And we said, Frances, what's wrong? And what happened was she was being visited by people who had died. They had died being addicts to heroin. This was a particularly powerful called black tar heroin from Thailand. And these individuals were able to communicate to her, and they were telling her how much suffering they had after they passed away because they were still addicted. They were still addicted physically, but they couldn't do anything about it. They had no body. and they had no alternatives. And they had a group. They had, like, you may have heard of Alcoholics Anonymous. Yeah. Well, this was kind of a Narcotics Anonymous group of people in the astral world, people who had died. And they had come back and told her, and she was able to also feel what they were feeling. And they told her, you have to tell people they have to stay away from these drugs. Now, more ghost talk. And again, this is stuff that I can't talk with my fellow scientists because they're not Baba lovers and they don't necessarily believe in this stuff. But it's very important because you're going to hear from a lot of people that, for example, cannabis, marijuana, hashish, weed, which has now become legalized in several of your states, isn't that bad physically. That is, you can't die from it. But Meher Baba knew other things that were going on with it. And he knew that the damage that was being done was, yes, to the physical body, but even more to the astral and subtle bodies. Now, you're acquainted perhaps with God Speaks, and you know there are three basic realms of existence. One is the physical, the second is the subtle, and that has to do often with emotions as it cooks down. The third is mental, and has to do with your thoughts. So people don't understand, and Baba talks about it in the discourses, that a lot of people who have been addicted to alcohol and drugs are so frustrated that they can't make progress after they die. They're still addicted. And they like to hang around people who either take drugs or drink alcohol with the hope that they can kind of invade them a little bit and get that feeling again. And what we call it in the field of parapsychology, we call it obsession or possession. And that is when a spirit takes over temporarily a person's consciousness. This happens a lot with alcohol, with severe alcoholic use. People say they blacked out. Often you hear that people's personalities change when they get really drunk or really stoned. That can be a result of these spirits hanging out and trying to get into your consciousness to, again, feel that feeling, that craving that didn't go away, but they have no body. Now, we don't usually scientifically talk about this, but I wanted to mention it, and you can certainly ask questions about it, because Meher Baba was aware of effects of these drugs that you'll never hear about in your drug education classes at school. You'll hear about the physical issues, which are significant. You'll hear about a dependency, and right now you'll hear about the wide use of fentanyl, which is a very, very powerful opioid. Opioids tend to depress consciousness, get you high, but it also depresses the ability to breathe eventually. Very powerful, 100,000 overdoses per year. And the dealers are now putting it in other kinds of street drugs. So you're finding overdoses of kids who didn't think they were taking fentanyl, but actually are. Okay, I don't want to get in too much detail unless you're interested in this. But so you might think, well, Meher Baba, he doesn't get involved in politics. He doesn't get involved in foreign policy very much. He doesn't pay much attention to these social kinds of issues and public health issues. But he did about the issue of drugs. He even broke not his silence, but his seclusion to communicate about this when he was talking about nothing else. He really thought it was important. He really thought it was critically important for young people. And he wanted some of us and any Bible lover who wanted to help to get that message out, to try to stop particularly the use of psychedelic type drugs, which at that time, in the old days in San Francisco and in the East Coast, at those days was associated with a path towards spiritual development. And Baba said, not so. People will say they take psilocybin, they take mescaline, they take peyote, they take LSD, they take ayahuasca, and they feel more spiritual. Well, they might, but it never lasts. And if there is one point about the use and the dangers of drugs and the limitations, no matter how enthusiastic people are about their drugs, the fact is they don't last. The effect doesn't last. We tried. I was in the graduate school with two very famous professors who started the psychedelic movement, and I volunteered for all the experiments, and I had these drugs, and almost all of us finally understood that you could not have a positive experience, even a positive experience, that translated into your ordinary life. I saw two of the most famous LSD psychedelic people, Timothy Leary and Richard Alpert. I saw them after a night of LSD where they thought they were one with God and had transcended their egos, and they were fighting over whose turn it was to do the dishes the next morning. Well, there he is. There's Tim. And eventually, Tim took enough LSD and he thought that he became the wisest man in the world. He was confronted by what Meher Baba said, and basically he said, I'm smarter than Meher Baba. Now his sidekick, Richard Alpert, who became known as Baba Ramdas, he understood. He finally understood. He gave up LSD and he started a spiritual life. He found a guru in India, and there's Richard, later on in life, wrote some wonderful books, had a very wonderful effect on people. And he wrote to Baba, and Baba told him to follow the guru he was following. And the guru really tricked him. The guru said, this is early on, he said, I understand. He met him, he was in India. Richard Alpert was in India. And the guru said, I understand you have this chemical, LSD. Do you have any with you? I would like to see. And so Alpert brought out a big bottle, enough to probably get 1,000 people stoned, because LSD is very, very powerful, very small doses. So the guru looks at the bottle, unscrews it, and drinks it all. And Richard and Alpert said, oh my God, I've killed my guru. No, this is terrible. The guru says, wait. He's sweating. Alpert is sweating. I didn't mean for you to do that. It is such, no one has ever taken a dose like that. This is terrible. The guru says, wait. He waited for 5-6 hours. Nothing happened. So the guru was high enough to transform this. But eventually he understood also. And of course, Timothy Leary never, he went downhill, which you can if you think you're the smartest man in the world. So we knew that the spiritual experiences from these drugs, even if they were positive, and when they were negative, they were terrible. And we had a couple of suicides and people who thought they could fly and things like that, which is not recommended above the 3rd floor. So we knew that. And at the last, after articulating, and Baba actually predicted all of the types of negative effects of these drugs, either late in the 60s or even earlier. And he's been right about them all. I can just go back, and if I wrote an article, I'll take what Baba said, and everybody would say, oh yeah, that's scientifically known now. Anyway, but the last thing in the last movie ever made of Bear Baba, he said, that's the big thing. No matter what anybody says, no matter how wonderful experiences people have had, it can't and it won't last. And people finally understand that, and hopefully they understand it before they are seriously injured. So I did want to say a little bit about this element. You can put it in the back of your minds. And who was it that was working with young people? Yes. So you can't people have to be open to this kind of thing. But sometimes they will be more and more. So sometimes you'll have to work more with kind of the conventional issues of what the disadvantages are of these kind of drugs. And Shilpa going to help out. I wanted to show you something that you could use. It's on the internet, easily available, that kind of introduces really good scientific information. We helped evaluate this. It might be for a little bit younger ages than you are, but it gives an example of the kinds of effects that we can talk about if nothing else. So Shilpa, are you ready to do the alcohol piece?
Yes, but before we do, I just want to stop and ask, do we have any questions from anybody?
Yes, before we do that.
I know we have a wide age range here. So I think the youngest is from 8 to 17, I believe, right? So any questions? One question I have to you guys who are in school right now, what do you learn in school that maybe, that you have questions that Allan can answer? And do you have anything that you're maybe confused about, right? So it doesn't have to be now, but Manya, do you learn anything about drugs or alcohol in school?
Not really, but one time we had someone come and talk about drugs.
What did they say?
They said try to live drug-free since it's very bad for your health.
Okay. What about Sia? What do you learn? I know you're a little older, so thank you, Manya.
Yeah, it's here and there. Some people come and they talk to us about drugs. Sometimes a teacher gives us lessons on them and all that. but I have no questions.
Okay. Soham, anything from you?
I mean, it's not really like teachers that talk about it more. It's just like people I know, like my friends will talk about stuff like that. I mean, not about like doing it, but like I'll talk about like what it might like feel like if you like did take something, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it's important to like talk about it like with other people around you to make sure they don't do it as well.
Good, great. Well, that's what we
And
want.
what about, especially you guys being in like, high school and stuff like that, do you hear a lot about the fentanyl, which is kind of, I think our country has been very much ridden with it right now. Anything from you, Laya, or anybody else?
No, I don't have any questions, but yeah, there are a lot of guest speakers that come in to talk about it quite often because there are like quite a few people that like get involved in drugs, especially in high school now. So yeah.
Okay, and what is the message from those people that come? Is it similar or different from what Allan is telling you?
I think it's more like they try to get you to understand like what the consequences and like more like that, I think.
Okay. I have to say, one of the most amazing things that I've heard today is that lady's experience, right, with people who've died from taking drugs and the pain that they're in after. I've never even thought about that, in the afterlife. So, any questions on that? Did you guys find that interesting at all? Did you ever consider that at all? All right. Okay. Well, do you want me to start with the alcohol one?
Yeah, this is an example of the kind of ordinary things that one would like to know about and one can communicate on basically on the physical and emotional level. It's cute, interesting.
So this one we have, and I can put these links in the chat later if you guys are interested. Are we doing this one or you want to do the video?
The video.
Oh, okay. My bad.
Butter and toast, mix. Robots and tacos, sorta mix. But kids and alcohol,
don't mix. You probably heard that alcohol is bad for your brain, but what does that actually mean?
To answer that question, we'll have to learn a little bit about neuroscience, the study of the brain and nervous system.
The brain is your body's control center. It processes information to and from your senses and manages vital and voluntary actions like breathing or keeping a regular heartbeat. It enables you to run and play, learn new facts and ideas, and feel a wide range of emotions.
To do all of these jobs, your brain contains many different parts. Each part is focused on a specific function, like movement, decision-making, memory, pretty much everything.
The brain transmits information throughout the body using a system of interconnected nerve cells called neurons. Chemical messengers called neurotransmitters carefully move the information from one neuron to the next.
Spoiler alert, these messengers play a key role in the way alcohol affects the brain. But hang on, we're getting there. Now, neurotransmitters can either be excitatory, meaning they stimulate brain activity, or inhibitory, meaning they slow down brain activity. To keep its operations going smoothly, the brain has to maintain a careful chemical balance between these two types of neurotransmitters.
Now let's see what happens when you introduce alcohol to this finely tuned system. To start, alcohol acts as an agonist or booster to certain chemicals in the brain's internal reward system. That's what can give people the relaxed feeling you may have heard about.
But alcohol also acts as an agonist to inhibitory neurotransmitters, increasing their ability to slow down brain functions. Simultaneously, it acts as an antagonist to excitatory neurotransmitters, decreasing their ability to stimulate brain activity.
You can probably guess what happens when you combine ramped-up inhibitory neurotransmitters with dulled-down excitatory neurotransmitters. All of your brain's different parts and functions become super slowed down, which can cause a wide range of physical, mental, and emotional effects.
For example, if too much alcohol hits your cerebellum, which is important for coordination, you might lose your balance and fall.
If alcohol impairs your hippocampus, where memories are made, you might have a hard time holding on to new information. like someone's name you just met, or where you left your phone.
And when alcohol hits your cerebral cortex, which has an important role in feelings and decisions, you may find it hard to control your emotions and get very sad or very angry for apparently no reason. Basically, as alcohol mixes with the different parts of your brain, it makes it a lot harder for them to do their specific jobs.
In time, these short-term effects of alcohol wear off as alcohol leaves the system, though a drinker may experience a sick feeling known as a hangover the next day.
But if a person continues drinking too much, it can have serious long-term effects. The brain will begin to chemically compensate for the way alcohol affects it, and in time, will start to rely on alcohol to function normally. This can lead to dependency, addiction, and other serious health problems.
As a young person with a still developing brain, alcohol can have a stronger effect on you than on adults.
Learning the facts can help you make healthy decisions. So say yes to a healthy lifestyle and no to underage drinking.
To learn more, visit asklistenlearn.org.
Okay, so this is one of the vehicles that folks are trying to use to start to get across some of the effects of alcohol and drugs. And it's correct to focus on the brain. In the sense, it's in the brain and the nervous system where the physical body connects with the subtle planes and the mental planes. And consciousness is affected. Now, Meher Baba was really very flexible. And he wasn't one of these people who say no to everything. And he would say, occasional glass of wine or whatever, it's not going to hurt you. And he's very concerned about the problems of both what we call acute alcohol abuse. And that is people drinking a lot on one occasion, especially driving, and being really at risk, not so much from dying from alcohol poisoning, but from what happens when you're drunk. And right now, interestingly, most fatal crashes seem to involve both alcohol and marijuana at the same time, which is not a great combination. So one of the ways that we can communicate and kids can communicate with each other has to do with effects on the brain and in a sense making people more stupid when they're drinking and less in control of their emotions and ultimately maybe getting possessed by a spirit. In fact, young people are not really that affected by stories about drugs and their health. Frankly, they don't worry much about their health unless something goes wrong. So it's not sufficient. With alcohol, so much is known about alcohol and alcoholism, and that there are medications and also support systems to deal with dependency and addiction, that we pretty much know what's going on. And it's less knowing the dangers of, for example, drunk driving than it is of convincing people that they really shouldn't do it, that it's not loving to themselves or to their friends. When it comes to more controversial drugs, there's a lack of information. And I want to say something now here about cannabis. People talk about marijuana. Do you know what marijuana is? Well, you'll probably think of a tobacco-like weed that people smoke. It's from a plant. People say, oh, from a plant. Got to be fine. It's natural, right? Well, a lot of poisonous mushrooms out there you don't want to. But people really don't understand. They don't understand what the real issue is. Here we have hemp and marijuana. They come from different plants. There's one big difference between them, and that's the key that most people, the adults, and the parents really don't know about. And that is, what is it that gets people high, that gets people stoned? And you're right, they don't really know, but there is one single chemical that accounts for all the damage that comes with the cannabis plant. Cannabis plant, some species of them produce hemp, and they do not have this chemical, this what I would call a psychedelic chemical. Psychedelic chemical is called delta-9 trans-tetrahydrocannabinol. Now, you won't hear your parents talking much about delta-9 trans-tetrahydrocannabinol. We call it THC. And to understand the whole issues about marijuana, hashish, the different edible forms of, quotes, marijuana, marijuana in spaghetti, soon to come in beer, certainly in gummies. The key to it is whether it has THC involved or it doesn't, and what the dosage is. You must have heard about CBD. On the screen, you can see CBD hemp oil. Well, CBD is also a product of the cannabis plant, and it also is a chemical, but it does not get you high and seems to have some good medical benefits. Now, again, let's just for fun, Shilpa, see some, what I think is the first video animation that understands this phenomenon. Again, it's, the presentation is a little bit elementary, but the facts are pretty heavy. This is the marijuana piece under Ask, Listen, and Learn. Let's see, Shilpa.
Give me 1 second. Yeah. Sorry.
You know which one it is. So this was done by a group. It has materials with it. We tried to develop basically a one-day course, maybe a couple-hour courses that teachers and parents could apply that might start the conversation about this. So anytime you're ready, Shilpa, fire away. What makes it very frustrating is that the politicians and the legislators don't understand this either. They don't understand it at the highest, the governors, the mayors, White House people. They do not understand it, and they're still talking about, when they talk about the legalization of marijuana, they don't know what they're talking about, which makes it very dangerous. Let's see if we've got it.
You've probably heard that marijuana isn't good for kids, but what does that actually mean?
To answer that question, let's take a closer look at the endocannabinoid system. To see exactly what it does, what marijuana does to it, and what that does to you.
Spread throughout the brain, the endocannabinoid system is a biological system made up of chemical messengers called endocannabinoids, cellular receptors that communicate with endocannabinoids, and enzymes that break down endocannabinoids after they've delivered their messages.
As endocannabinoids communicate with receptors throughout your body, they create balance and help regulate many body and brain functions, such as helping with memory, coping with stress, pain, and anxiety, and keeping hunger, body temperature, motor coordination, and alertness in balance.
Now let's see what happens when marijuana is introduced into this balancing system. Made from a plant called cannabis, marijuana can be smoked, vaporized, or ingested through food or drink.
Marijuana contains a chemical called tetrahydrocannabinol, also known as THC. Since THC's chemical structure is similar to naturally occurring endocannabinoids, the body allows THC to attach to endocannabinoid receptors in the brain.
When THC enters the body, it overwhelms the endocannabinoid system, attaching to cannabinoid receptors and throwing the body and brain off balance, preventing endocannabinoids in your brain from doing their jobs. Endocannabinoids work like a well-conducted and highly synchronized orchestra, with each one playing at a particular time and place in harmony. When THC is introduced, the precise coordination is lost and thrown off. The endocannabinoids can no longer do their special job. This means your brain will have a harder time regulating all of those functions like memory, coping with stress and anxiety, and motor coordination. Plus, when using marijuana, some people may experience fear, anxiety, paranoia, or memory loss.
Laws allowing medical and recreational use of marijuana for adults are becoming more common in some states, though not in others. But as a young person with a still developing brain, marijuana can have a stronger, more harmful effect on you than adults.
In fact, research has shown that young people who chronically use marijuana, especially highly potent marijuana, increase their risk of cognitive and memory damage, serious mental illnesses like depression and psychosis, and addiction to alcohol or other drugs in adulthood.
Learning the facts can help you make healthy decisions. So say yes to a healthy lifestyle and no to underage marijuana use.
To learn more, visit asklistenlearn.org.
Okay, again, the mechanisms that Meher Baba pointed out are beginning to be discovered. In this case, THC, which at high levels of dosage are almost as potent as LSD, and those kinds of experiences can happen. Now, the use of THC can be refined so it becomes more and more powerful. And if you get THC, for example, in gummies or other kinds of edibles, or vaping it at high dosages, can really knock the brain out. You can almost see a kind of match between the images of the endocannabinoids being replaced as almost like holes in the brain. It almost matches what the clairvoyant said. So it is important in this element to kind of almost educate parents as well as young people in terms of what THC can do. And the myth is that marijuana is relatively harmful. Not so. Now, it's very interesting. I used to lecture a lot at high schools. And actually the kids who were using marijuana understood the lectures better than the others because they could start to see the effects. All I would have to do is ask questions like, having a little trouble remembering phone numbers? Yes. Getting a little less enthusiastic about doing homework? Oh, yeah. The tricky part, if you're dependent on marijuana, it is very difficult for you to admit it. You're an alcoholic. Certain things are pretty obvious. I mean, you're drinking day and night. People are seeing, are reacting to you. You kind of know. You kind of know if you blacked out the night before, it's been an effect. And you kind of know you're dependent after a while. With cannabis use, the THC is such that you don't get this kind of feedback. And people who use marijuana really don't want to admit that they are dependent on it. I will ask them, you think you could stop? Yeah, of course I could stop. I can stop anytime I want it. And okay, well, can you do it for 3 weeks? Sure, I could do it for 3 weeks. I said, okay, you willing to try? No, just as soon not. And it got so that one time I was on the radio doing a show, and guy called in. He was very angry. He was very angry at me. He says, how can you say that you become dependent on marijuana? That's ridiculous. And I should know because I've been using it every day for 20 years. It's like that. So it's very tricky. And that's why sometimes we need to communicate the scientific effects and point out what's going on in terms of symptoms. I was talking to a very nice guy who wanted to go to law school, and he needed to take the law school admission test, the LSAT. I said, well, when did you start studying for it? And he said, oh, about 8 months ago. I said, are you making progress? I mean, really, you wanted to get into law school next semester, didn't you? I said, yeah, but I work and then I get home and I smoke a joint and I listen to music. I said, have you ever put those two things together? The fact that you have not studied, the fact that you're getting stoned every night? He said, no, I never did think of that. So he stopped and he finally studied and he got there. So it's subtle. In other words, it's tough for people to understand, particularly with cannabis. With certain of the dangerous drugs, it's obvious. With methamphetamine or the speed, people know. And there are forms of heroin now that contain a animal tranquilizer that begins to rot your skin off of your limbs. If your skin is rotting, that's a signal that perhaps you have a problem. And so with heroin use, it's so dramatic, the coming down from it, the withdrawal from a lot of these other drugs that with cannabis and marijuana, etc., and psilocybin, mescaline, the psychedelics, it's not so easy to tell. So anyway, I have so much more to say, but I see we've been with you for an hour. I did want to open it up for any questions people had. So what's the summary? Mayor Baba was right. He was very flexible. He said that some of these drugs, not so much marijuana, but even LSD, could be used medically for certain kinds of diseases. Ironically, he in fact specifically mentioned that LSD could be used to help cure alcoholism. And research is going on now. He was right about that. I mean, he's not he wasn't judgmental. He's telling you the real story. And he said that, opioids for pain, perfectly legitimate. Again, these drugs used for medical use, it's not a question of bad or good. It's a question of what happens when you use them. to the extent that you can help people at least think about some of these issues. And they're always like in high school, you've got stoners in there, and you can easily point them out, and they tend not to be your star football players. They tend not to be your valedictorians. You can kind of tell they're losing it. So there's ways of communicating that, helping people realize that there's a difference between being high and being normal. And here's the problem. If you get high and you like it, what does that say about your ordinary life? You know that everything's relative, right? Happy, sad? How can you be happy if you've never been sad? You can't, because it's relative. You think it's average. So even if you have a good high experience, it automatically makes your ordinary life worse because it's comparative. That's another principle. So Meher Baba was talking about that. Meher Baba knew that these drugs were dangerous on a much more important level, on the level of the energy around the body, the astral world and the subtle world, that it opened you up to dangerous influences. And obviously, you didn't want to die being addicted. And it warped consciousness in a way that's very consistent with certain kinds of brain damage. But it was at a different and higher level. And what we said today is you can't ordinarily tell people about ghosts and spirits hanging around trying to get high. But the fact that you know that, don't ever think that you need to buy into the myth that nothing bad is happening to people and that like micro dosing on psilocybin will make you smarter, etc. Don't fall for that, because Baba knew it wasn't true, and Baba knew, in fact, what the real dangers were. And he thought it important because, particularly for developing youth, you get screwed up, by middle school or high school, and then it's very difficult in certain ways to recover. And it blocks like life paths that might be very, very productive. So that's the big picture. Now, I know everybody's shy about asking questions, but even the adults can also ask the questions here. I'm quite open to it. Go ahead.
So, Allan, one of the things I want to ask is, you spoke about medical marijuana, right? But I know there's a lot of CBD oils for pain, right? That for muscle pain or whatever that you have. So again, are they okay? Especially, with some of us have athletes, or we know of athletes or whatever you have.
Right. In general, CBD is fine. It doesn't have the THC that really has the negative effects. And it can be I know people who find it very helpful for muscle pain and things like that. And that's fine. Just don't, but see, the ordinary population says, well, that must be medical marijuana. It isn't medical marijuana. It's one of the chemicals in the cannabis plant. The ordinary marijuana right now has very limited medical uses. The THC doesn't. There's some evidence for it helping for childhood seizures. So it's not off the books, but it really doesn't happen. So CBD, no problem. But you look at the percentages of THC, and if they're below 1%, they really don't do anything. But Shilpa, that's a good question. very popular question.
Anybody else have any questions? Please feel free to unmute. Go ahead, Richard.
Well, Alan, I have a question for you. I've often thought of this, but I can't articulate it like you could at all. But how does it all, especially, we'll talk about THC and marijuana, but how does it interfere with your spiritual evolution in consciousness of yourself? It must interrupt it somehow.
Well, it does, because it distracts. In other words, it's a modification of consciousness that kind of puts the spiritual motive to sleep. It becomes more of a block if one thinks that it's helpful to their consciousness. And that was the concern back in the 60s, where people were basically following a path that led to nowhere. And so it can reduce your motivation for both improving yourself naturally and also using your energy towards either studying spirituality or in the Baba world, certainly connecting with Baba. So it definitely gets in your way. Good question. Thank you, Rich.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I have one quick question. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
Jai Baba, just I want, because the kids session, I want kids to know that what exactly Baba's message, that actually how Baba conveyed that message, the drugs against spirituality. Actually, Baba's message is connected to the drugs. And when he came to US, the purpose when it was there, that during that time also, how just he countered that, acted against that drugs. That he took care of her drug addiction, that how he did everything. That's what.
Are you asking how one uses Baba's message to counter the drugs?
Yes.
Well, we have available now a couple of books. Rick Chapman has collected pretty much a lot of most of what Baba said about drugs in a book. I think it's called Rugs and Drugs and Flying Consciousness or something. And we have also a very small book done by Laurent Weitzberger. So when the issue of spirituality, for example, comes up, of course, we can communicate what we know about this, but we also can show people what Baba said about it if they had any questions. Sometimes we have Baba's message in the back of our mind, but we use the keys or the motivation, what's important to people, to point out how drugs can get in their way. For example, rock musicians, Pete Townsend and the rock group, The Who. I know the younger ones know their music. They were very much into drugs. And they thought when they played, they thought they were playing much better, performing much better when they were high. But when they listened to the recordings, they were shocked because they were much worse. And they gave it up. So almost anyone, and if anyone has a passion for something that they feel is valuable, we use that message. For example, women getting pregnant. We know that if they take certain kinds of drugs, the babies will be born addicted. And mothers know better than that. They really don't like that. Certainly, any of their activities that they love, the arts, performance activities, athletics, chess, whatever, we can point out how the effects of these drugs hurt their brain's ability to do these things well. So they will never perhaps admit or say that the drugs are bad for them, but they will understand that the drugs get in their way. They can't do what they really wanted to do. And you can just ask them. You can ask them, well, what's really important to you? And they may have an answer. And generally say, and how do you think that drugs are helping or hurting them? And they know, intuitively they know. And that's the important thing we have to understand. Subconsciously, everybody knows internally that the drugs are bad for them.
Yes.
All right? So when you're talking to them, remember, because you're talking to their unconscious as well as their consciousness. You're planting a seed that they hear on some level. As a psychologist, I can tell you that I have given thousands of pieces of advice to people who do not take them, who will not take that advice. Apparently. But who often will come back even years later saying, hey, you know what you said about that? That turned out to be exactly right. So they know it. And so never be discouraged when you're giving a message, even if that message is rejected, because at some level they are hearing it. And at some level they will be able to access it. And at some level, from past lives, certainly millions of past lives, they had some drug-involved lives. They know that. They know it. But their present egos cannot take it in. So whatever you say, even if you think it's not a comprehensive explanation or just a bit of information, or just an observation from you, or just a suggestion that somebody, if you're riding with an adult and they're drunk, recommending they call Uber or Lyft, you know. So that's the thing. Baba wanted us to spread the message. He didn't want us to have as a goal eliminating all drug abuse in the United States. All right, there's a difference.
But practically, how Baba did it, I wanted.
Although I'll tell you what, people, they try to tease some of us who were working and say, you didn't solve the drug problem. Baba told you to solve the drug problem. You didn't solve it. And we have to laugh. But I'll tell you one thing. Very few people now think that the psychedelics are going to get you to God. That's pretty much over. So coming back a little bit, but I think he really got rid of that. And that was terribly important.
Mm-hmm.
But good question again.
Thank you. Murli Pinaya, go ahead.
Thank you. Jai Baba, Allan, what do you, I know you did tons of research on this and parallels to what exists and what Baba said, but what do you see as these saints and sadhus of India? I mean, I've seen pictures of those where they do smoke some level of the recreational stuff. I don't know if they want to use it as a practice for what they do, but what do
there's a long history in India,
right,
of the use of particularly of drugs like marijuana and khat and things in different languages. And they're not real gurus if they're stoned. I'll tell you that. They're not real gurus if they tell their disciples to use it. Many times, Mayor Baba has pointed out that that you can learn tricks, you can learn psychic tricks in India, and you can actually give experiences to people if you're a low-level guru. But Baba always said that wasn't the purpose of giving experiences. And they do that. They do that in order to get people to follow them. But it can't be a practice. So you kind of know that's one characteristic of whether they are among the few authentic gurus that are in India. And even if they do bigger tricks, there's Satya Sai Baba. I think he passed away. Not our Sai Baba. India, who used to manifest things in the air and stuff like that. He had a big following because he could manifest objects. And one of my students went to India when I was teaching in California. He went to visit him. He went with a friend. And while he was talking to Satya Sai Baba asked what religion his friend was. And Tim said, well, I don't know. I suppose you'd say he's Christian. And Satya said, Baba, well, then he would like this. And out of the air, he manifested this wooden cross. It was a very nice wooden cross. I said to my students, Tim, what did you think of that? And Tim said, well, if he was able to do that, he would be able to think that we would be really impressed by that. And if he wanted us to be impressed by that, he couldn't be much of a guru. I said, well done, Tim, well done.
You taught him well.
Yeah, that was good.
That's awesome. Ralph? And after Ralph, I want to kind of also open it up to the floor to the, tweens and teens that we have here, in case they have any questions. Go ahead, Ralph.
Yeah, I've not been in amongst a lot of Baba lovers for quite a few years, but I also was amongst and almost continuously amongst lots of Baba lovers for about 20 years. And a few Baba lovers I discovered and shared in confidence with me that they had not given up drugs. And in some cases, those who were really surprised me, really acquainted with Baba, deeply acquainted with Baba, and you felt that they loved Baba. I said, how can you do that? And she says, I don't think Baba means it quite the way everyone thinks. I don't know.
Of course.
She says, Sai Baba of Shirdi smoked opium in his pipe. I said, are you sure of that? She says, yes, she had some kind of corroborating, but I didn't see the proof. But then I heard that from more than one person. I'm not sure where that information came from, nor what it proves. It may have been for pain. I mean, he was perfect. If he smoked a little opium in his pipe, I don't know. But she used that to kind of vouchsafe, give credibility to
Yeah, that's right.
A green light to what they were doing,
Yeah.
the persons were doing.
Yeah.
And
Well,
I didn't know what to say. I just took Baba's name and I knew it wasn't for me. It had made a mess of me and I didn't want to go back there. So, yeah. But
look, that happens.
lots of people do survive it better than I did, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, they still think they're quite sane and secure.
Well, you know,
perhaps they are.
This is, you know, just because you love Mayor Baba doesn't mean that you everything you do is rational or helpful. But it's a good example of what the drugs can do. In other words, one can become so attached to them that they develop a story that it's quite consistent with Baba. That's their story. It's called denial in a certain way. And but they're going to be in the same situation as other people, and sooner or later they're going to understand what's going on, and it may be that they get in trouble. There are a lot of Baba lovers who are alcoholics, a lot. There are a lot of Baba lovers who seem to be mentally ill. Okay, when you're on the path, your ego gets destroyed in many ways, but it definitely fights it. Definitely fights being joined with God. And if you're stoned, it's easier to make up that kind of story. But that's why it's the point at which they have not just the statements of Baba, but they get to know the science of it too. And they begin to understand that it's not going to be helpful to their ordinary life. So they'll learn eventually, but it's a good lesson. It's a good lesson. It's a good lesson on why not to experiment, because the initial experiences can be great. They can reduce anxiety for a while, and they can make you feel good for a while. Well, they're not going to make you any more effective in ordinary life. They're going to cut you off from people eventually. So they'll get to see it. So don't be too shocked. It's a matter, everybody gets to God sooner or later. When Baba says, hey, you want to take the more direct path? Then here's the way you do it. You want to slow down? Go ahead. You know, I'm not going to stop you. You want another extra 1,000 lifetimes? Hey, from God's point of view, he's very patient. But it's also a fabulous opportunity during this avataric age that may not come again. So it's good to take his advice seriously.
Alan, I just remembered something that Noshirwan had mentioned once before about Baba had, and I hope I'm not wrong, but that apparently we all have like a membrane in our brain that could be impacted because I think the question to him or someone was how some people, even after like severe drug abuse, right, seem to be like once they stop, they're okay. But some people, are like so much more impacted. Can you expand on that a little bit? Because I think from a scientific perspective, I think that was very relevant.
I think we can see it more from a spiritual perspective. The membrane can be considered the sanskaric sheath that is between
it's not a physical membrane.
Well, it is certainly true that everybody's brain's different, and certain people can take certain trauma to their brain and recover, and some brains are more sensitive. It's just that, for example, a certain percentage of people who take LSD will have psychotic experiences, and most won't, at least the first time. So it's individual differences, and in that, and we can't tell. I mean, on this plane of existence, who's going to be able to recover and who isn't. A lot of people who've blown enough of screwed up their endocannabinoid system and their neurotransmitters that they really will not be able to be rational human beings in life. And they'll have severe mental problems. Others will have be able to restore the chemical balance and come in. But one should never assume that one's own membranes, if you will, or brain cells are so superior that they're going to be able to recover.
Yeah. Okay, that's great. Anybody else have any questions? Soham, Sia, I know some of you have dropped off. Meher, anything? What did you guys think of this talk or discussion?
So unfortunately, I have no questions, but it was very interesting to hear like Allan like talking about like how drugs can actually like impact your life negatively and also spiritually.
Awesome. So I know one of the one of the popular ones now are the gummies, right? So any questions on, if your friend comes and says to you, "Hey, Meher, do you want to try this gummy?" How would you react, or any questions on that, on how to handle a situation? Maybe Allan, you can expand on that, a real life situation.
Well, this group is you are also powerful. You young people spiritually got so much positive energy that even simple responses to pressure to try say, no, I'm not interested in that. Or, no, I know too much about the effects of it, and I'm actually concerned about you. Okay. In the worst case, you say, my mother would kill me. And I do not want to be grounded or busted. That'll always work. My mother will kill me thing will.
Or maybe I'll have to come live with you, right? That could be a good answer.
That's right. That's right.
Anyone else? Sia, what are your thoughts on this program?
I have no questions, but it was really nice hearing all of that information. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Steve. Thank you. Well, if anybody has questions that you think of later, contact Shilpa and she will contact me and we'll get back to you.
Yeah, Manya, what about you? I would love to hear your perspective. I think the other kids had to go to classes and stuff, so we've lost a few. What did you think, Manya? I know you're 8.
I liked how they told a lot of information, but I don't have any questions.
Okay. I'll be happy to share in your parents' chat the links. If you have any questions, you can go back and look at the videos again. But yeah, anyone else? I know we're at 5:30 and I want to respect everyone's time. Soham, anything from you?
So I actually have a question about like the potency of like different ways of ingesting something of the same amount. So say you have maybe like I don't know, because it honestly depends on the type. Because I know a little bit about it because I hear people talk about like weed and stuff, and I know there's about weed, and I know there's like edibles, and there's a certain milligram amount per edible. So I was wondering if taking an edible is less potent than actually smoking, or if smoking is actually like more like, I mean, I understand that smoking is probably more harmful than taking an edible because you're also damaging your lungs in the process.
Right.
So how would it, so when you take an edible, how would it go into your bloodstream
Well,
versus
it all
smoke?
has to do, it really all has to do with how much THC.
Okay.
So you would simply, it really all depends. I mean, the weed that can be smoked can be extremely potent or not, as well as that can be vaped. So it's a matter of the percentage of THC in a particular edible, for example. And if you want to be a real scientist, or you can go on the web and get kind of charts that will show how many milligrams of THC basically associated with what degree of effect. But you know, the number of emergency visits by kids, by really young kids and babies, gone way up with edibles. And with edibles also, it takes more time for it to get into the system. So people are saying, well, it's been 45 minutes, I don't feel anything. Let me take more. And so you can build up a very, very high level in your blood at that level.
Okay. Thank you.
So it was a good question. It can be researched, and it really depends on the potency.
So I know, like, sometimes, right, you especially, I think, I mean now in New Jersey as well, but mostly, like, I think a few years ago in California, right, everything, there was just so much of, people talk about, yeah, here, have a gummy or whatever, right? And I mean, I'm talking more so amongst adults, and we've had discussions with friends saying, oh, it's not a big deal, it's just a little bit, it's once in a while. What is your message? Again, I know it's clear, for some of us who are big proponents of no drugs in any form, to compare to some who are like on the fence, especially in college, as these kids go into college, I'm sure they're going to see more of that because now they're going to be adults.
Well, yeah, again, it depends on what they're sensitive about. To some of them, they really wouldn't want to become dependent or addicted. And you have to tell them that no matter what they've heard, THC can definitely become dependence forming. The other thing about THC, and Meryl, this relates to your question too, THC is fat soluble. And what happens then is the body's fat cells get invaded by it. And so it stays in your body for quite a while. So people who think they're taking only a little bit, it gets added to. They will only have a couple of joints every other night, but it's building up in the system. You can test for it even up to a year. If you do hair analysis, you can test for up to 2 years. So that's why you really can't, with cannabis, it's very hard to use it infrequently enough to be safe. All right, because you're taking your edibles and you're building up an amount in your body. And there are things we call flashbacks. If you get stressed later, some of the cells can exude the THC and its metabolites, and you can really get hallucinations just from the cannabis if it all pours back into your system. So again, it's this gradual deterioration that we need to look out for, and that quality very few people understand. Yeah, you can take weed and you seem to be straight in 8 hours, but there's still a lot left in the system. It's just not getting out in the blood and going to the brain. Again, something that's not well known.
Interesting. Yeah, because you hear a lot of, oh yeah, it's just so relaxing, once you take it. So.
Yep, very tempting.
Yeah. Ralph, go ahead.
This is kind of a question relating to what we saw in the video regarding the brain, the area of the brain that was referred to and named, a word related that had the root in it of cannabinoid in the word that describing that area of the brain. And I was wondering, like, sort of like who came first, the mischievous chicken or the egg type quandary was, did the name for that area of the brain exist prior to the popularity of cannabis, or did cannabis?
No. That's the that was the original category of neurotransmitters called cannabinoids. It was related. They probably took the name because of the chemicals that were similar to these cannabinoids can be found in the cannabis plant.
Yeah.
So, but the cannabinoid physiology was known before cannabis.
Before cannabis.
Yeah. And that was it's a Latin name given to a species of drugs.
Anyone else? If not, I would love to say thank you all for joining us. It was a great, great session. I'm so glad I got to meet some of you for the first time. Rich, I see you on the late night. I'm like always watching them after. So so it's so good to finally meet you face to face. Diantha, it was so wonderful to meet you as well.
Yeah.
And Ralph, you come and go. So I'm so happy to have everyone here. And we do have another session next week on forgiveness with Laurent. It's going to be a very, very interactive session. So looking forward to that. And I think that might be the last one because we kind of stop right before school stops so that, people get the summer gets hectic. And then I'm going to try to pick it back up again in September. So I would love to have some of you come and be guests on our, Tween show and share Baba experiences. Rich and Ralph, you guys, after listening to a lot of these conversations, seem to have a lot of stories from, being with the Mandali and stuff like that. So it'd be wonderful. And Allan, last but not least, thank you so much. I know you've been extremely, extremely busy, but it was so great to have you here and coordinate with you.
Well, it was terrific being here. I really respect everything that you all are doing. And it was wonderful meeting many of you for the first time. And I have absolute confidence that you're going to be sparks of divinity for everybody you meet.
Thank you. Wonderful session. Thank you. Very
Meher Baba.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everyone.
Thank you.
Jai Baba, everyone.
Jai Baba.
I heard Baba's name.
Thank you, Jai Baba.
I heard Baba's name the first time ever because of Alan and Rick on the TV show. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Baba. Yeah. Joe Pine. The doves the doves came down.
The doves came down. Yes, they did.
Yeah.
Jai Baba, everyone. Take care. Have a good.
Thank you, Allan.
Enjoy the warm weather for those of us on the East Coast.
Jai Baba, y'all. Okay, bye.
Bye, Allan. Jai Baba.
Yeah, Baba.